My name is Nora Bennett. I was 41 the day my mother-in-law decided my daughter was not real family. It happened at a June wedding. On a wooden dance floor. In front of around 80 people. All afternoon, everyone had been whispering the same thing. A colonel is coming. Someone important from the base. My 7-year-old, Rosie, was dancing. She was not bothering anyone. She was just spinning in her new white shoes while the second song played. Then a hand grabbed her wrist. Then it pulled. That was the first thing that broke that day. The second was a hospital door at 7 that night. The third was a title nobody at that wedding ever thought belonged to me. My husband's family had built a whole story about me. About my child too. About where we both belonged. About where we did not. By the end of that night, every one of them learned how wrong they were. Welcome back to Twisted Family Revenge Stories. This is the place where the quiet person in the family finally gets the last word. Not with screaming. Not with begging. With truth. If you have ever been looked down on by people who should have known you better, stay with me. Because this one did not end the way they thought it would. I had flown home from a posting 2 days before the wedding. In my husband Ethan's family, that always got turned into one short sentence. Nora is off doing her government thing again. That was Gloria, my mother-in-law. She was 66. Sharp. Cold. The kind of woman who could smile and still make you feel shoved out of the room. She said that line the way other people talk about rain. Light. Casual. Like it meant nothing. But it always meant something. I stopped correcting her years ago. Correcting Gloria cost more than it gave back. This wedding mattered more than most family events. Her younger son, Ryan, was getting married. The reception filled the whole back lawn of Pine Harbor Lodge. String lights. A dance floor built over the grass. White chair covers. Cake by the tent. And under all of it, a current of gossip that kept brushing past me. The colonel is coming. Ryan invited someone high up. Big deal from the base. Nobody said a name. The rumor had been passed around so many times it no longer sounded like news. It sounded like weather. Ryan knew exactly what I did for a living. So did a few people from the base. But in this family, nobody corrected Gloria's version of a person. And Gloria's version of me was simple. The wife who disappears. The mother who has gone too much. The woman with a vague job nobody understands. She had been polishing that version of me for weeks. Near the bar, she introduced me to one of Ethan's cousins with a tiny shrug. "This is Ethan's wife," she said. "She's away a lot." The cousin smiled at me the way you smile at a coat hanging on a chair. Polite. Empty. I felt Rosie's small fingers in my hand. Then she let go. Ethan came up beside me with 2 slices of cake. He squeezed my shoulder and leaned in. "She means well," he whispered. He always said that. Ethan was 43 years old and still translating his mother into someone kinder than she really was. I did not argue. I had Rosie to watch. And I had a phone in my pocket that could ring with work nobody in that tent would understand. So I smiled. I took a glass of lemonade I did not drink. And I watched a family that thought it had me figured out. They had no idea who they were actually waiting for. People think the military is all yelling. It is not. The best officer I ever served under raised her voice one time in 3 years. That one time scared us more than any scream ever could. The rest of the time, she ran on calm faces, clean notes, and the refusal to panic. I built my career the same way. When a fuel convoy went wrong at 2 in the morning, I did not slam a desk. I opened a notebook. I wrote down what was true. Then I signed my name under it. That habit followed me home. Ethan learned that the year one of his cousins tried to blame him for wrecking a truck. I did not fight. I pulled records. I laid out dates. The lie folded by itself. Once, Ethan asked me why I never just told people off. I told him the line I had lived by for 20 years. I don't make scenes, I said. I make records. He laughed. He said it was the least romantic thing he had ever heard. Maybe. But it had carried us through 3 moves and 2 deployments. That afternoon, my dress blues were hanging in a garment bag in the trunk of my car. Zipped up. Out of sight. Ryan had asked me to wear them for the last hour of the reception. Come on, Nora, he had said on the phone days earlier, laughing. Let them finally see what you do. I told him I would think about it. The truth was, I hated the idea. I had spent so long being the woman who was away a lot that showing up in uniform felt like flipping on a light in a room where everyone had agreed to stay in the dark. Rosie was 7. She believed in 2 things with her whole heart. Animals. And dancing. That day she wore a yellow dress and bright white shoes with little buckles. She had begged to fasten the buckles herself. Every time she turned on the wooden floor, the shoes made a tiny squeak. That sound made her laugh every single time. There was a song the cousins' kids always asked for. The one with the clap in the middle. At every family party, the DJ played it second. Rosie loved it so much we just called it the second song. When it started, she dropped my hand and ran to the floor. I watched her find the beat. Lose it. Find it again. Some older kids made a loose circle around her. She spun until her dress lifted out around her knees. Then she stopped, dizzy and grinning, and looked for me. I gave her a thumbs up. She laughed. Then she saw Gloria near the edge of the floor. Grandma, watch. Rosie did her best spin. Gloria did not clap. She did not smile. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. Like it did when a fork had been set in the wrong place. I noticed that look. Of course I noticed it. But a little girl asking her grandmother to watch her dance is not a crime. And I was not going to march across a wedding over one hard look. Ethan came up beside me carrying plates. He followed my eyes to his mother. She's fine, he said. He meant Gloria. I was looking at Rosie. At those squeaking white shoes. At that silly, perfect second song. I would remember both for a long time. Gloria found me 10 minutes later by the dessert table. She had a way of appearing beside you like she had been standing there the whole time. Can I be honest, Nora? She asked. That always meant something mean was coming. Of course, I said. She watched Rosie dance and lowered her voice. A girl that age needs her mother home. Not flying off wherever the government sends you. I had heard versions of that for 8 years. I kept my face easy. Rosie's doing great, I said. Look at her. Gloria did not look. She's wild, she said. She runs in the house. She interrupts. That's what happens when there's no steady hand. Then she shifted, because the real point was never far away. Today has to be perfect, she said. The colonel is coming. Ryan's commanding officer, or someone like that. Important people from the base. She said colonel like it tasted expensive. Then she gave me the order she thought she had a right to give. So please keep her calm. For 1 second, I wanted to explain exactly who might be showing up in uniform that night. Then I let that urge pass. Explaining myself to Gloria always felt like asking her to respect me. And I was done asking. I'll keep her close, I said. That was true. And it was all she was owed. She patted my arm like she had won something. Then she floated back toward the head table. Ethan had heard enough to know where it went. He gave me that same sorry half smile. She's nervous, he said. It's Ryan's day. Just let it go. I let it go. At least on the outside. Letting something go is not the same as not seeing it. Gloria did not run that family alone. Her brother, Victor, helped. Victor was 63. Loud. Certain. The kind of man who treated every family gathering like a meeting he was running. When two little kids tore past his chair chasing each other, he barked, "Children should be seen and not heard." Heads turned. The kids froze. Victor liked that. He liked the freeze. Then there was Ethan's cousin, Shelby. She was 31 and moved through the party with her phone held up like it was part of her hand. She filmed everything. Never kindly. I saw her aiming her camera at Rosie on the floor. "Somebody's raising a little animal," she said to the woman beside her. She smiled when she said it. "Made sure it carried." The woman laughed. Heat climbed up my neck. I pushed it back down. Reacting was exactly what Shelby wanted. She collected reactions the way some people collect jewelry. I learned later that this was the moment she started building her own story of the day. Thumb moving over the screen. Clips. Captions. Posts inside the family group chat I was not even in. By the time anything truly happened, half the relatives had already been fed a picture of a messy child and a tense, absent mother. None of them had seen Rosie ask her grandmother to watch her dance. None of them had seen Gloria refuse. I try to be fair. Fairness is the only weapon I fully trust. Victor was not cruel just for fun. He measured family by who showed up, stayed quiet, and bowed their head to the loudest person. I never bowed. Shelby was not a monster either. She had spent her whole life being the person nobody looked at. So she learned to point cameras at other people's worst moments. Understanding them did not make me safer. It only told me what kind of storm I was standing in. By 6 o'clock, the air at that reception had changed. Too many glances toward the dance floor. Victor talking near the bar like he was setting the tone. Gloria checking the gate every few minutes for her important guest. I have stood in places where danger was real. The body knows the difference between nerves and warning. This was a warning. So I did what I always do. I made a plan. Between songs, I crouched in front of Rosie and took both her hands. "Hey, stay close to me for a little while, okay?" She frowned. "I'm dancing." I smiled. "I know. Just dance where I can see you." She nodded the way kids nod. Which means, yes. For about 1 minute. Then she drifted again. I found Ethan and spoke plainly. "I may get a call from work. If I step away, watch her. Eyes on Rosie. Not your phone." He nodded, but he was distracted, looking for Ryan. "Ethan." He looked at me. "I mean it. I've got her," he said. "Just let it go, Nora. It's Ryan's day." There it was again. His whole life packed into one sentence. I did not push. On a normal day, Ethan was a good father. And for 1 more hour, this still felt like a normal day. I made sure Rosie stayed within reach. I stood where I could see both her and the gate. I did the things careful people do. I tell you that because later, when people asked how I let it happen, I needed the answer myself. I did not let it happen. I planned for everything except how fast a grown woman can cross a dance floor when she decides a child is in her way. My phone buzzed at 6:40. The screen showed a number I could not ignore. The duty desk. The kind of call you take or regret. I stepped back 3 paces to the edge of the lawn, turned one shoulder to the music, and answered. "Bennett." It was a status update. Less than a minute. Nothing urgent in the end. But for that 1 minute, my eyes were on the grass instead of my daughter. Behind me, the second song started again. I heard the clap. The children shouting. The squeak of small shoes finding the beat. Then I heard something else. A sharp adult voice cutting through the music. And under it, a child's cry that I knew in my bones before my mind even caught up. I turned. Gloria was on the dance floor. Her hand was locked around Rosie's wrist. She was dragging her off the wood and toward the grass while Rosie stumbled to keep up. One white shoe had come off and been left behind on the floor. Rosie's arm was pulled up and back at an angle no arm should make. And Gloria was saying it loud enough for everyone to hear. "No child of a soldier ruins my son's day. Get her out." The whole yard went quiet in pieces. Victor was already moving. He stepped between Ethan and the floor and planted a hand on Ethan's chest. I heard him mutter something about not making a scene. Shelby's phone was up. Emma, the bride, stood near the cake with both hands over her mouth. Rosie was not crying for attention. She had gone past that. She was holding her right arm tight against her body and making a thin, high sound. The sound a child makes when shock hits before tears do. I crossed that floor faster than I have ever crossed anything. I did not yell at Gloria. I did not even look at her. I dropped to my knees in front of Rosie. In that moment, the wedding, the guests, the colonel they thought was coming, all of it disappeared. There is a checklist for this. There is a checklist for almost everything if you train right. And when your hands want to shake, a checklist saves you. I held Rosie's face first. "Look at me, baby. I've got you." Her eyes found mine. "Good." Then I looked at the arm without touching it. She held it bent against her stomach. Would not turn it. Elbow most likely. Not the wrist, even though the bruise there was already rising in the shape of fingers. I had splinted worse injuries on darker nights. But never hers. Never my child. Above me, Gloria was still talking. Faster now. The confidence in her voice had started to crack. I had to do something, she was telling the guests. She was out of control. I did not answer. Silence makes people like Gloria talk more. Dig deeper. She did both. I slid one arm under Rosie and lifted her against my chest, careful of her elbow. The white shoe still lay on the floor. I bent and picked it up. Only then did I look at Ethan. He stood a few feet away, Victor's hand finally off him. His face had gone the color of paper. "We're going to the ER, I told him. Now." My voice was low. Even. That evenness scared the people around us more than screaming would have. Victor muttered something about overreacting. About children being tougher than they look. I walked right past him. I did not raise my voice. I raised my daughter off that floor and carried her toward the gate. Behind me, I could hear Gloria rebuilding the story already. Rosie was wild. She had no choice. I was being dramatic. Let her talk. I had a hospital to reach. The walk to the car felt a mile long. It was maybe 60 yards over gravel. Rosie had stopped making that thin sound. Now she was shivering. I liked that even less. I buckled her into her booster as gently as I could, supporting the bad arm. The loose white shoe sat in my lap. My garment bag hung in the back seat, swaying when I shut the door. I did not think about the uniform inside it. I thought about the 15 minutes to the county hospital. And whether I should call ahead. Before I could pull out, Ethan jogged to my window. He looked split right down the middle. The way he always looked when his family pulled one way and the people he had chosen pulled the other. "Mom's really upset," he said. "She's crying. She says if we leave now, in front of everyone." I kept both hands on the wheel. "Your daughter's elbow is dislocated. I'm leaving." He swallowed. "Can't we just?" "No." He looked back toward the lights. Then back at Rosie in the booster, holding her arm. Something in his face gave way. "I'll come," he said. I looked at him. "Stay if you need to keep the peace," I said. "I'm going either way." I was not trying to be cruel. I was giving him a choice. But in the end, he stayed for the moment. His mother was sobbing into Victor's shoulder. The bride was crying. The party was tipping sideways. And Ethan had never been able to walk away from a room that was falling apart. I understood that about him. I just could not let it matter more than my child. So I drove away from that lot with Rosie in the back seat and a wedding tearing itself apart behind me. For the first time in 8 years, I did not look back to see if his family approved. My phone started lighting up before I even reached the highway. Not calls. Messages. The family group chat. The one Ethan was in and I was not. A decent cousin named Claire forwarded me a screenshot with one line. "You need to see this." At a red light, with Rosie dozing in pain behind me, I watched Shelby's clip. It was short. Only a few seconds. And it was cut well enough to lie. It started after Gloria grabbed Rosie. So all it showed was my daughter twisting, crying, pulling against an adult hand. No sound of what Gloria had said. No shot of the bent arm. No shot of the white shoe left behind. The caption said, "This is what happens when there's no discipline at home." Under it, relatives were already lining up. Poor family. On Ryan's big day too. Some people shouldn't bring kids if they can't control them. Where was the mother? Not one of them asked why a 66-year-old woman had a child by the wrist. Not one of them asked why that child sounded hurt. I sat at that red light longer than I should have. The screen lit my face. And I felt the pull to type. To explain. To defend Rosie in some neat paragraph they could skip and mock. But I knew better. You do not win inside a group chat that already voted you guilty. So I turned the phone face down on the passenger seat. "Let them talk," I said out loud. Rosie stirred. "Mama? I'm here, baby. We're almost there." The light turned green. The phone buzzed all the way to the hospital. I let it. The county ER on a Saturday night is its own kind of stage. We got there a little after 7. I carried Rosie through the sliding doors into that cold, bright waiting room. The triage nurse took one look at how Rosie held her arm and moved us up fast. They put us in a curtained bay. The doctor came in a few minutes later. Young. Calm. Good with children. She crouched the same way I do. "Hi, sweetheart. Can you show me where it hurts?" Rosie pointed to her elbow with the good hand. The bad arm did not move. The doctor felt along it gently and kept talking the whole time, asking Rosie about her yellow dress. Then she looked up at me. "I think it's nursemaid's elbow," she said. "The bone slips out of place. It's less common at her age, but a hard enough pull can still do it." Her voice stayed light. Her eyes did not. They asked the question. How did this happen? So I told her the truth. Plain. A relative grabbed her by the wrist and dragged her off a dance floor. The doctor's pen stopped for 1 second. Then she nodded and wrote it down. "Okay," she said. "The good news is this usually fixes fast. The other part, we'll talk about in a minute." She did not explain yet. She did not have to. I had filled out enough forms in my life to feel the machine start moving. The quiet machine hospitals use when a child is hurt by an adult. I held Rosie's good hand while the doctor stepped out. Rosie looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said right away. "You are in no trouble at all. None of this is your fault." She believed me. Mostly. The doctor came back in. The fix took seconds. She cradled Rosie's arm, pressed her thumb near the elbow, and turned the small forearm in one smooth motion. A soft click. A sound most parents never hear. A sound they never forget. Rosie yelped. Then blinked. Then, 1 minute later, reached for the sticker the nurse offered with the same hand she had not moved in an hour. Children heal in ways adults never do. The doctor sat back. "She'll be fine," she said. "Take it easy for a day or 2. Then her voice changed. Careful. Clear. "I need to tell you what happens next. When a child comes in with an injury caused by an adult grabbing her, I have to report it. That is not a judgment of you. It is the law. It goes to county child welfare first. And because the injury was caused on purpose, our system also flags law enforcement. I nodded. I had expected it from the moment she asked. Inside me, the part that signs its name under facts felt the ground go solid. This was no longer Gloria's story to shape in a group chat. This was a record now. A real one. The nurse stayed behind after the doctor stepped out. She was older. Her badge said Denise. She handed me a small folded slip of paper. "Visit and case number," she said quietly. "And the name of the officer on call tonight in case they stop by. People always need it later and never have it." "Thank you," I said. I held that slip like it was warm. Then I knelt by Rosie and slipped the white shoe back onto her foot. This time I buckled it for her. She watched me with those huge tired eyes children get when the worst part is over but the hurt still sits inside them. Then she asked the question that split me open. "Mama. Grandma said I'm not real family. Am I real family now?" For 1 second, I could not trust my voice. Then the curtain moved. Through the gap, I saw a police officer walking toward our bay. The officer was a woman about my age. Dark hair in a tight bun. Notebook already open. She introduced herself in a soft voice so she would not scare Rosie. Then she asked if I could step into the hall for a minute. Denise sat with Rosie and somehow found a juice box. I stepped outside. "The hospital called it in," the officer said. "I just need your account." So I gave it to her the way I would give a briefing. Time. Place. Who. What. A 66-year-old relative grabbed my 7-year-old by the wrist and pulled her off a dance floor with enough force to dislocate her elbow, in front of roughly 80 witnesses, while saying she wanted the child removed. The officer wrote it all down. Then she looked up. "I want to be honest about how this works," she said. "In our state, an adult causing an injury like this to a child can fall under battery. I don't decide charges. The county attorney looks at the medical report and witness statements." "I'm not asking for punishment," I said. She paused. "Most people are." "I'm asking for it to be on the record," I said. "That's all." She studied me for a moment. Like she had expected tears or threats and got neither. Then she nodded and wrote that down too. "We'll need statements from people who saw it," she said. "Anyone willing to talk?" 80 people had seen it. How many would speak against Gloria in a family where silence was treated like loyalty? "I don't know yet," I said. "But I'll find out." Ethan got to the hospital around 8. Still in his wedding pants. Tie gone. Hair wrecked from his own hands. He pushed through the curtain and stopped cold. He saw Rosie in a soft sling the nurse had made. A juice box in one hand. A sticker on her cheek. He saw the bruise on her wrist blooming dark and clear. He saw the folded slip in my hand. For the first time that whole day, he was looking at the thing itself. Not his mother's version of it. "Oh, Rosie Bug," he whispered. He went straight to his knees beside the bed. She leaned into him. He stayed there a long time. When he stood again, his eyes were wet and his jaw was tight. He asked carefully, like he already knew the answer would hurt. "Mom says you called the police on her. The whole family is saying it. Did you?" "The hospital reported it," I said. "They had to." I gave a statement. "That's the truth." He pushed both hands through his hair. "This is going to blow up the whole family." "It already blew up," I said. "On the dance floor." I just stopped pretending it didn't. He stood there in silence. Then he asked, smaller this time, "What are you going to do?" I looked at Rosie. Half asleep. Safe. Arm back where it belonged. "Nothing dramatic," I said. "I'm going back to that reception and telling the truth in the only language your family has ever respected." He frowned. "What language is that?" I did not answer. "Some things need to be shown." I kissed Rosie's forehead. I told Ethan to take her home and stay with her. Then I walked out to my car, where a garment bag was waiting in the dark. I drove home with the radio off. The sitter we had booked for later was already there, confused by the early disaster. I went into our bedroom. I unzipped the garment bag. My dress blues hung there, pressed and ready. Dark blue jacket. Silver buttons. The eagles on the shoulders. I want to be clear. I did not put that uniform on for revenge. I put it on because I had spent 8 years letting Gloria, Victor, and the rest of them decide who I was. The absent one. The vague government woman. The mother whose daughter was wild because she did not know how to be home. I let them believe that because correcting them felt too much like begging for respect. I was done begging. Not to win. Not to humiliate. To stop being invisible. I buttoned the jacket slowly. One silver button at a time. The way you do a thing you mean. I checked the eagles in the mirror. Settled the jacket on my shoulders. And looked at the woman in the glass. She did not look dramatic. She looked like the truth. The slip of paper sat in my pocket. The officer's words about witnesses still rang in my ears. The reception was probably still limping along. Gloria would never let a party die while an audience remained. There was still time. And the colonel they had all been whispering about all day was, in fact, already on the way. I picked up my keys. Ethan brought Rosie home just as I was ready to leave. The two house of my night met in our front hallway. He stepped in. Saw the uniform. Stopped. He had seen photos before. He had never seen me wearing it in our own house. Never seen me standing there in it, close enough to touch. Something crossed his face then. Something I had waited 8 years to see. Recognition. He did not say anything clever. He just breathed out one word. Oh. Rosie was sleepy in his arms. Small. Her sling kneed against her chest. I took her for a moment and sat on the bottom step so we were eye level. She lifted her good hand and touched one silver button. You look like a soldier, she said. I am one, I told her. She thought about that. Then she came back to the sentence still sitting like a stone inside her. Grandma said I'm not real family. I placed my hand over hers on the button. Real family, I said, is the people who would never pull you away from where you belong. That's the only test. Her eyes stayed on mine. And you, I said, have never once been the person who didn't belong. Not for 1 second. She stared at me with that hopeful, serious look children have when they are building their whole world from your face. Then where are you going? To make sure everyone there knows it too. I kissed the top of her head. Handed her back to Ethan. By the door, her white shoes sat side by side. Both buckles fastened. I looked at them for a second. Then I walked out into the warm June night and drove back toward the lights. The reception had not died. Of course it had not. When I pulled into the gravel lot a little before 9, the string lights were still glowing. A thinner crowd still circled the dance floor. The way a party keeps moving after the joy is gone, just because momentum has not stopped yet. I stayed in the car for 1 minute and watched. Through the open side of the tent, I saw Gloria doing what Gloria does best. Working the room. Touching arms. Shaking her head sadly. The picture of a wounded woman. I could almost hear the words from where I sat. Nora made a scene. Nora called the police on family. Nora ruined Ryan's wedding over nothing. Victor stood by the bar, backing her up with his sighs and his silence. Shelby was showing her clip to anyone who would watch. That short, dishonest clip. But there was something else. Not everyone was nodding. An older couple near the cake stood apart, talking low. The man looked grim. A bridesmaid kept glancing at the place on the dance floor where the white shoe had been. Emma sat at the head table in her wedding dress, mascara streaked down her face. She did not look like a bride angry at a child. She looked like a woman who had seen something she could not unsee. People had watched a grown woman wrench a little girl's arm. You can lie about a thing like that for an hour. But it leaves a stain. The lie was winning the room. But not cleanly. Then I heard it. Floating across the lawn from the gate. The Colonel's here. That changed the air at once. The whole tent turned. I stayed in the dark for one more second and watched their faces arrange themselves. Victor straightened his jacket. Shelby lowered her phone, then raised it again toward the gate. And Gloria smoothed both hands down her dress and lifted a wide hostess smile onto her face. She was ready to greet someone important. They were all expecting a man. I knew it. Some silver-haired officer. Some older stranger who would shake Ryan's hand and give the family a borrowed shine. That was the Colonel in Gloria's head. That was the Colonel she had promised. I stepped out of the dark and walked toward the gate. My shoes crunched on the gravel in a slow, even rhythm. The first person to really see me was a young airman standing near the entrance. One of Ryan's friends from the base. His eyes hit the eagles on my shoulders before they reached my face. His spine went straight. His hand snapped up in salute. He held it. People follow a salute the same way they follow a pointed finger. One by one, faces turned. From the gate. To me. I walked into the tent light in my dress blues. And the whole reception went quiet. The airman held the salute until I returned it. Then he dropped his arm. Now the whole room had nowhere left to look but at me. So I let them look. Silence, used on purpose, weighs more than any speech. I stood there and let 80 people read the eagles, the ribbons, the name tape that said Bennett. I watched the math happen on their faces. The whispers started. That's the Colonel. That's Ethan's wife. The one Gloria said. Ryan crossed the floor first. Still in his wedding clothes. He stopped a few feet from me and did what training made his body do before his mind even chose it. He came to attention. Saluted. His voice cracked. Ma'am. He had known for years exactly who I was. He had simply never been allowed to say it out loud at his mother's table. I returned the salute. Touched his arm so he knew I was not there for him. Then I looked for Gloria. She stood by the head table, one hand still half raised from the welcome she had meant for someone else. Her smile froze. Then it broke apart. Her eyes moved over the uniform. The shoulders. My face. And I watched her fail to make the pieces fit. The Colonel she had bragged about all day. The daughter-in-law she had called absent. The woman whose child she had dragged across a dance floor while calling her a soldier's child like it was something dirty. Her mouth opened. For the first time in the 8 years I had known her, Gloria had no script. They said a colonel was coming, she whispered. The whole silent tent heard it. That's you. It's me, I said. I did not say it loudly. I did not need to. Somewhere behind us, the DJ's playlist rolled by accident into the second song again. The clap and all. A few children near the floor swayed before their parents stilled them. Gloria recovered the way women like her always do. By reaching for charm. Her frozen face softened into something warm and false. She came toward me with both hands open. Nora, sweetheart, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. She turned just enough so the crowd could see her being reasonable. We were all so worried about little Rosie. How is she? You rushed off so fast. None of us even. She has a dislocated elbow, I said. The doctor put it back tonight. A rough sound passed through the guests. Gloria pushed harder. Children get hurt at parties. It's nobody's fault, really. I only moved her because she was spinning near the older guests. I was protecting her. And now you've turned this into, she gestured at the room. This whole thing. Victor stepped in beside her, big and loud. Nobody calls the police on family, he announced. This is being blown way out of proportion. Everybody calm down. I did not get louder. When other people shout, the strongest thing you can do is make them lean in to hear you. So I lowered my voice. And the room leaned with it. I didn't turn anything into a production, I said. Gloria, I put on the uniform I earned so this family would finally see who I actually am. I held her eyes. You called my daughter a soldier's child like it was an insult. You spent all day waiting for a soldier. Here I am. Gloria's voice jumped higher. You are embarrassing this family. No, I said. I'm ending the part where you got to decide who counts. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and took out the folded slip. I did not wave it. I simply held it. The hospital case number. The officer's name. Proof that the truth had left the gossip stage and entered the record. Then I turned, not to Gloria, but to the room. My daughter is 7, I said. Tonight, a doctor had to put her elbow back into place. When a child is injured by an adult, the hospital is required by law to report it. I gave my statement an hour ago. I let that settle. The officer told me they will need accounts from people who saw what happened on that floor. I looked from face to face. I'm not here to argue with anyone about what they think they saw. I'm asking one simple question. I paused. Did you see it? The silence stretched long and tight. Gloria's eyes started moving fast. Victor opened his mouth. Then the older man by the cake table set down his drink and stood. I saw it, he said. His voice shook. He kept going. That child did nothing. Gloria grabbed her arm and yanked her right off the floor. I felt sick about it for 2 hours. A woman 2 tables over rose next. I saw it too. Then the bridesmaid. She lost her shoe. I watched it happen. One by one, more people stood. Not a mob. Not dramatic. Just people who had been carrying something heavy and were finally given permission to put it down. Then Emma rose from the head table in her white dress. Mascara ruined. Hands shaking. She looked right at Gloria. I saw you do it, she said. On my wedding day. I will never forget it. Shelby's phone slowly lowered. The screen went dark. And then, as if the night had chosen its moment, headlights swept across the gravel lot. The officer from the hospital had said she might stop by to collect statements while memories were fresh. Now she walked through the gate. No rush. Notebook in hand. She took in the scene in one glance. The silent tent. The standing witnesses. The woman in dress blues. Evening, she said. I understand some people here saw what happened to a little girl tonight. I'd like to speak with anyone willing. That was the moment Gloria broke. Not cracked. Broke. This is insane, she shouted. Her voice splintered. This is my son's wedding. You're all taking her side because of a costume. She threw one hand at my uniform. She walks in here in her little outfit and suddenly I'm the criminal? I have given everything to this family. Everything. She was turning in a circle now, looking for support and finding stillness. I stayed exactly where I was. When she ran out of breath, I spoke into the quiet she had left behind. I told you a long time ago, Gloria, I said. I don't make scenes. I looked at the officer. At the witnesses. At the slip in my hand. I make records. There was no triumph in my voice. There did not need to be. The record already existed. In a hospital chart. In a police notebook. In the bodies of people no longer willing to lie. Gloria looked around then. At Victor, who had gone silent. At the guests refusing to meet her eyes. At her own sons. I saw the understanding land. This was not a thing she could charm her way out of. She turned to the last person she thought might save her. Ethan, she said. Tell her to stop this. I had not even seen him come back. He must have driven over after the sitter settled in, unable to stay away from one more room falling apart. He stood just inside the tent in his shirt sleeves. Every head turned to him. Because Gloria had just made him the deciding vote. For 8 years, Ethan had split the difference. Smoothed it over. Softened his mother's words. Asked me to let it go one more time. I watched him stand there under all that weight. And I said nothing. This part had to be his. He looked at Gloria. Then at me. Then at the empty place on the floor where Rosie had lost her shoe. When he spoke, his voice was rough. But it did not shake. Mom, he said, you put my daughter in the hospital. Gloria opened her mouth. He cut across her. I had never seen him do that. No. I watched you grab her. And I let Uncle Victor hold me back instead of stopping you. I will be ashamed of that for the rest of my life. He swallowed hard. I should have stopped you on that floor. Then he looked straight at her. I'm stopping you now. Across the tent, Ryan stepped up beside his brother. Still in his wedding clothes. Jaw set. Colonel or not, he said, she's my niece. You were wrong, Mom. On my wedding day, you were wrong. And everybody here saw it. Gloria stood alone in the middle of that floor between her 2 sons. For the first time all night, nobody rushed in to defend her. She stared at her own hands. At my wedding, my husband's mother told me, in front of everyone, that I would never be good enough for this family. I stood there in my dress and swore nobody would ever look past me again. Then she looked up at me. For 1 second, there was something real in her face. Cornered. Sad. I just wanted today to be perfect, she said. I wanted to matter in it. I felt the pull of that. I am not made of stone. A wound carried for 40 years is still a wound. But I have learned something important. Understanding why someone hurt your child is not the same as excusing it. Those 2 things must never be confused. So I crouched until we were eye level, the same way I crouch for Rosie. My voice stayed gentle. I'm sorry that happened to you, Gloria, I said. I mean that. Nobody should be made to feel invisible at their own family table. Then I let the gentleness hold while the truth underneath stayed hard. But being hurt 40 years ago does not give you the right to put your hands on a 7-year-old and call her a soldier's child. I held her gaze. It does not make that forgivable tonight. She looked away first. I think she understood exactly what she had traded. And for what? I stood again, because crouching too long in front of someone gives them more of you than they have earned. The officer was waiting. The witnesses were still standing. There were still practical things to do before the night ended. But the family needed to hear the boundary out loud. In front of the same people who watched the harm happen. A boundary whispered in private is just a wish. So I spoke clearly. Here is how this goes. I am not asking the county for anything. What they do with the report is up to them. I won't beg for punishment. And I won't beg you out of it either. I looked at Gloria. Then at Victor, who still had not said a word. But until there is a real apology to Rosie, and until whatever the county decides is finished, you do not see my daughter without me or Ethan in the room. I let every word land. Not at holidays. Not at birthdays. Not for 5 minutes in a hallway. Still no one spoke. You do not get unsupervised time with a child you were willing to drag across a dance floor in front of 80 people. That is not revenge. That is the new rule. And it is not open for debate. Nobody argued. Victor looked at the grass. Shelby drifted closer to the exit, suddenly fascinated by leaving. Gloria sat with her hands in her lap and said nothing. In its own way, that was the first honest thing she had done all night. I turned to the officer and told her I would be available for whatever she needed. Then I went to find the bride and groom. I found Ryan and Emma near the half-cut cake. Their day had bent under someone else's cruelty. I was truly sorry for that. I took Emma's hands. I'm sorry your wedding became this. You deserved a perfect day. She shook her head hard. Her ruined makeup made her look fierce. Do not apologize, she said. You protected your little girl. That's the only thing anybody did right tonight. Ryan hugged me, careful of the uniform. I'm proud to be related to you, he whispered. I told him to go dance with his wife while there was still music. The night did not belong to Gloria just because she tried to seize it. Then I turned and walked back toward the gate. Behind me, the tent stayed quiet for one long beat. Then the music came up again. Soft at first. And the second song rolled back around. The clap and all. A few brave guests stepped onto the floor for Ryan and Emma. I did not look back at Gloria. I was done looking back at Gloria. The gravel felt cool under my shoes. The June night smelled like cut grass and cigarette smoke. My car waited where I had left it. An empty booster seat in the back. And one clean thought moving straight through me. My daughter was home. She was fixed. She was asleep. She was safe. I had not raised my voice one time. I had not needed to. I got into the car, placed the folded slip carefully in the console, and drove toward the only people whose opinion had ever really mattered. The county followed up that week. A caseworker called. Kind. Thorough. After the medical report and more witness statements than I expected, the county made its own choice in Gloria's case. Because she had no prior record, it did not become a trial. No handcuffs. No dramatic arrest. Instead, the prosecutor moved forward with a formal charge resolved through a diversion program and counseling. But it left a record. A real one. One that would follow her for a while. I had told the truth. Then I let the system weigh it. That was all I had ever wanted. The family group chat went through a strange reversal. Once the witnesses started talking, once the people in that tent began correcting the lie, the tide turned. Shelby quietly deleted her clip. Though by then, half the family had already seen it for what it was. Victor stopped giving speeches for a while. A few relatives who had piled onto me sent the kind of sideways apology people send when they are too proud to say the word sorry. I accepted them. Then moved on. Grudges are heavy. And I had a daughter to lift instead. Ethan changed too. In the way that mattered. He stopped translating his mother for me. When she called to test the boundary, he held it every time. I did not have to remind him. It turned out the man I married had a spine all along. He had just spent 40 years being taught to fold it up to keep the peace. Gloria has not seen Rosie alone since. Months later, she sent a card. A real apology. No excuses. No, if your feelings were hurt. Just an apology. I read it to Rosie. Then I let Rosie decide what she wanted done with it. Rosie's elbow healed in 2 days, just like the doctor said. Children mend fast. The harder things took longer. A few weeks later, on an ordinary Sunday morning, I was making coffee when the second song came on the kitchen radio. The clap and all. Rosie looked up from her cereal. Thought about her healed arm for a second. Then slid off the chair and started dancing in the kitchen. Right there on the linoleum. In her white shoes. Both buckles fastened. She spun until her hair flew. Just like it had on that dance floor. And this time, nobody crossed a room to stop her. She caught me watching. Held out her hand.